Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
The holidays are here at the Home Depot. If you're working on getting ready for company,
a lot of company,
make sure you're ready with Black Friday savings. Get up to 40% off select appliances, plus up to an extra $1,000 off select kitchen appliances. Upgrade your kitchen with top brands like GE Profile and get sleek cutting-edge appliances to make sure you've
got hosting handled.
Yeah, you do. Get Black Friday savings now with free delivery and financing on select appliances this holiday at the Home Depot. Offer valid November 6th through December 4th. U.S. only. See store or online for details.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Hi there, Blue Devil fans. Welcome to episode 665 of the DBR Podcast, the Duke Basketball Roundup. Jason Evans here for you. It is bright and early on a Sunday morning. I am joined by Donald Wine, and we have an important task today, Donald. We have two things we must do. We must talk about Duke's big upcoming game against the Kansas Jayhawks, and we must recap a wild and crazy night of football for the Blue Devils as they won their 8th game of the season against Virginia Tech. How are you doing this morning, man?
Well, I'm glad I got some sleep. I'm
just
joking.
Barely.
I got no sleep. As I mentioned yesterday, the F1 race was last night. I watched that to its completion. I did not go to bed until 3:37 on the East Coast. So I am once again, Jason, drinking out of my coffee, but it's a nice Duke mug this morning. For those of you out there who cannot see our Zoom. That'd be Jason and I. But yeah, this is a big game coming up. And on the heels of the win over Arizona, it's arguably even more important to get a good result out of this game in Vegas.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, we didn't talk about it enough, how important the Arizona win was because, you and I did an episode about the ACC a few days ago, and the conference is frankly struggling other than a couple teams at the top. And it looks like there are not going to be a lot of really quality win kind of chances for Duke within the ACC schedule. So these non-conference games against these big power conference teams, the top tier teams, and we've talked a lot. I mean, Duke has set up a really, really impressive schedule. But part two, after you set up that great schedule, is you got to win some games against it.
Right.
And let's just be honest. I mean, if Duke essentially has 5 high-profile non-conference games this season. If Duke goes 2-3 in those games, I think it's really difficult to make a case for being a number 1 seed. I just think, people are going to look at that and say, look at the other top-tier teams that you could not beat. So getting that win against Arizona, hugely important. And if you're able to follow it up with one against Kansas, oh boy, that's the big time. So let's get to that Kansas game, Donald. And as we always do, you can start us out by talking about who they've played. And with most teams sort of this point in the season, the who they've played is not that interesting. That is not the case with Kansas, though.
Yeah, Kansas has had a pretty decent schedule so far. They're 5-0. Obviously, they are number 1 in the AP and the coaches poll. They're number 8 in Ken Pom, number 6 in Bart Torvik right now. And the thing about Kansas is there are times that they play like the number 1 team in the country, and you're like, oh yeah, Kansas, very, very good. I can see that. And then there's times where they kind of struggle. And despite the fact that they're 5-0, they have struggled a little bit with some of these opponents. We'll go through the 5 that they have played so far. They started out with a win at home against Howard. Shout out Kenny Blakeney. He went over to the beast that is Fog Allen. Howard lost 87-57, and you're thinking in that game, hey, they look really good. They then had a very tough game against UNC at home, and UNC was inching closer. It was a very back and forth game, Jason. I know we talked about it a little bit on the show when that happened, and UNC barely lost. 92-89 was the final score there, and you're thinking, okay, UNC, at least from an ACC standpoint, ACC looks fairly tough if you have UNC going to Fog Allen and almost beating the number 1 team in the country. They then obviously had the Champions Classic when we played Kentucky. Before that, Kansas played Michigan State. Michigan State, again, held their own, but in the end, it was Kansas that won 77-69. Now, after those 3 games, you're like, wow, Kansas has kind of escaped a little mini gauntlet here of 2 games in a row. Clearly, number 1 team in the country. I think at that point they had like 60 of the 64 votes in the AP poll. And then they came back. They played Oakland, not Oakland, California. Shout out Oakland County, Michigan. The Oakland University Grizzlies there, and Oakland came to Fog Allen and only lost 78-57. You're okay. All right, 21 points. That's not bad. Like that's not a terrible. That's a pretty decent win for Kansas. Their last game was against UNC Wilmington, and UNC Wilmington again at home, 84-66 the final score there. So you see the kind of trajectory here, and the question is, at least from Kansas circles that I've talked to, is like, hey, Kansas might be looking forward to this game against Duke a little bit because they've taken their foot off the gas in a lot of not necessarily crucial points, very few crucial points where you're playing Oakland, UNC Wilmington, but there's a couple times where Kansas fans have been saying, hey, they're a little too lackadaisical for our blood pressure here, and going up against Duke. This is a game that, again, Duke has obviously been ready for, but Kansas is going to be ready for it too. This is the game where both teams are going to be locked in. It's in Vegas. The lights are brightest, and that is going to be the catalyst for what I think is going to be a highly entertaining game for neutrals. For you and I, Jason, blood pressure medicine. Remember that. I'm packing that when I get the plane tomorrow.
I feel like as much as Kansas was hyped on the season, their results, because they were the preseason number 1.
Yep.
Their results haven't really matched the hype. Again, they haven't. It's not like they've looked bad. I mean, this is not, a team that is struggling to win games, but they haven't been as impressive, I think, as people expected them to be. So, this is a statement game for Kansas, I think, as much as it is for Duke.
So I think the reason behind that, and Jason, over the years, right, there are different times where we kind of look at the number 1 team in the country and we go, that team is light years better than everybody else in college basketball, right? Like you have that type of separation. And this year, it was told that despite the number of pretty good teams, that Kansas was a step above everybody else, right? Like throughout the portal and all of that, even with Duke coming in with the Herald class, people are like, Kansas is number 1. There is zero question about that. You have a 2-time defending national champion whose name is not Kansas, who was slated to be like number 2 or number 3 in the polls because everyone said Kansas was that far above everybody else. And as you said, so far this year, they have not played a level above everybody else. And so the statement game for them is, hey, are we the team that's light years better than everybody else that the polls say we are? Or are we closer to that of Ken Pom and Bart Torvik, who says, yes, there's a lot of pretty good teams in college basketball, and Kansas just happens to be one of them.
Yeah, and speaking of the advanced metrics, let's get into, you mentioned Ken Pom, Bart Torvik. It's worth noting that in Torvik's unbiased rankings, where you take out the preseason expectations, Kansas is the number 12 team, which not bad, but like we say, it is not the kind of quality, the kind of performance that we've sort of came into this season expecting from Kansas. And it's worth noting that the computers, Torvik, Ken Pomeroy, and the other folks who plug all the efficiency numbers in and make predictions on games, they say Duke probably wins this game by about 3 to 4 points. That's not a lot. Let's be clear. It's not like Duke is a heavy favorite or anything like that in this game, but Just in terms of how the two teams have played so far and how they've looked so far, the expectation is that Duke probably has a slight edge in this game. Kansas is the most experienced team in all Division I basketball. Number one in experience. The average player on the floor for Kansas has 3.44 years of experience. That's outrageous. They have a freshman, Flory Bidunga. We're going to talk about him in a little bit. They have one freshman who plays a little bit, but the rest of the lineup, juniors, seniors, fifth-year super seniors, these guys have been around college basketball a lot. And let's be clear and let's be honest. I mean, Kansas is a mercenary school. There's just no other way to say it than that. A lot of the guys in this team are guys who sort of openly have said, yeah, I'm open to the highest bidder. And Kansas is the team that has been the highest bidder pretty consistently. That's not to say they got several guys who've been there for years, fourth and fifth year seniors who've made their entire careers at Kansas. And it's not like, it's not like I say, Duke shouldn't have Sion James and Mason Gillis and Malik Brown. I get that that's the era of college basketball that we're in, but Kansas is really perceived, by folks who follow college basketball as the team of mercenaries, as the team that they'll go out and get anybody who's out there on the transfer portal market, and Kansas is the team that'll outbid you for them. So
I was going to say the outbid part is what we're talking about here. It's not necessarily that these guys are just like, oh, well, Kansas gave me the best opportunity. Like, Kansas sees somebody, and at least over the last couple of years, they have made it clear that if they see a guy and identify him as someone that they want in their program, they will go to the greatest lengths to get him. And that includes up in the ante when it comes to NIL. And there's been a lot of NIL battles that Kansas has won over other schools because they're just willing to pay more.
Yeah, exactly. I'll get to that a little bit as I get to the advanced stats and the players. Let's start again a little bit more now on the advanced stats. They are a team. Kansas is a team very comfortable playing either fast or slow. You talked about the game against Michigan State, Donald, where that game was played at 79 possessions, which is a very fast pace. Literally, their very next game against Oakland was played at 63 possessions, which is a very slow pace. So Kansas is like, we don't mind either way. Although one of the reasons that their games sometimes slow down is because of their defense. Kansas is a good defensive team, and they will slow you down and grind you out on defense. This is a team that has, at least on the defensive end of the floor, they defend the three really well. Giving up only 27% from long range. They're a fairly good shot blocking team, but not the kind of club that gets, a ton of shot blocks or a ton of steals. They don't turn you over a lot. They just grind you out on defense, and that slows the game down a little bit. And that's one of the reasons that, they tend to play at maybe a little slower pace than their offense would dictate. In terms of their offensive style, they don't shoot a ton of three-pointers. They're about 300th in the land at 3-point rate. But when they do shoot them, they hit them at a fairly decent, like 35% rate. So it's not like they're a bad three-point shooting team. It's just their offensive style is more get it inside, drive the ball into the middle, or especially dump it down into Hunter Dickinson, who we're going to talk about more in a moment. They are Kansas is outstanding at getting good looks from 2-point range. This is a team that hits better than 60% of their 2-point field goals, which is really, really impressive. They have, we talked about how experienced they are. They've got ball handlers. The guys who have the ball in their hands simply don't turn the ball over. This is Kansas top 15 in the country at turnover percentage. And they know how to find the open man. Donald, you talk about assist rate all the time. That's a key stat for you. Kansas's assist rate is better than 60%. That's just super impressive. It shows you that the ball does not stick. The ball moves around by this team, and that they find good open shots. And that's one of the reasons they're so efficient on offense. They do a poor job, by the way, of drawing fouls and getting to the line. They're 315th in the country at free throw rate, which is kind of surprising given everything else you know about them, but they're just not a team that tends to get to the free throw line a lot. And let's get into the specific players who are behind all of this, because I've sort of danced around it a little bit, but everything on offense especially revolves around Hunter Dickinson. He is the 7'2" fifth-year senior who came over from Michigan a couple years ago. I'll just go ahead and say it. The top offensive threat in the post in the country. There's absolutely no question about it. Hunter Dickinson is a guy who will plant his butt down there on the low post, and when he gets the ball, you're in trouble. There are no two ways around it. It's actually a pity that Hunter Dickinson didn't stay at one school. He played 3 years at Michigan. He's now in his second year at Kansas. If he'd stayed at one school, he would be setting all kinds of school and conference scoring records. By the end of this season, he's probably going to be around 2,800 career points, which is just an outrageous kind of number. But because he went to different schools and different conferences, he's not going to set any score records, but he's going to be up there on the all-time NCAA career scoring list. 2,800 is just an outrageous number of points. On this season, Hunter Dickinson is averaging a double-double. 17.8 points per game, 10.4 rebounds per game. I mean, those are big numbers. Those are big numbers, Donald. He's not an explosive player. He's not a guy who's going to get off the floor really fast, but he has good timing, and he is 7'2". So he blocks almost 2 shots per game. So you have to be aware of where he is defensively. He also will step outside. He shoots a couple 3-pointers every game, and makes them a decent clip, like mid-30s on his 3-point percentage. So you cannot. One of the things they do sometimes, Hunter Dickinson will set a screen, and you think, oh, he's going to screen and roll. He'll screen and pop, or guys will drive to the middle, and your big man, Kamen Malawach, will go help and leave Hunter Dickinson alone on the wing, and they'll pass out to him, and he is not afraid to take that 3-point shot, not at all. He is, even though he's a decent 3-point shooter, one of the big holes in this game, he's not a very good free throw shooter. Just 61.8% in his 2 years at Kansas. I mean, for a big man in the middle who's going to get fouled a little bit, 61% is just not that strong. He was better at Michigan. I don't know why he's like suddenly become.
I'll say he was shooting closer to 77 to 78% at Michigan.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
And he got to the line often. He gets to the line often, so it's not like he's taking free throws every couple weeks. He's a guy who, the way that he plays, forces you to kind of foul him to kind of slow him down.
Yeah, it's I don't know what, you would think it's an aberration that a guy who hits close to 80% one place would be somewhat similar to the other place, but for some reason he's really struggled at the line at Kansas. It's sort of strange. I don't know why. But he's going to be. I'll let you talk about the matchup with him and Kamen Malawach, but I think that's one of the biggest keys to this game is that Hunter Dickinson is capable of just playing you out of the game, like putting your big men in foul trouble, being a guaranteed 2 points almost every time down the floor for Kansas. If that happens against Duke, Duke's going to struggle to keep up in a big way. Let's talk about some of the other guys. The backcourt, the rock, the point guard, like literally his entire career at Kansas is DeJuan Harris. He has 116 career starts at point guard for Kansas. This is a dude. DeJuan Harris knows how to play point guard. You can pretty much book him for 5+ assists per game. He'll play smart. He'll play steady the whole game. You're not going to get him flustered. He's not going to turn the ball over very much. He's not a big scorer. Like I looked, DeJuan Harris has one 20-point game in his career. It was last year in the Champions Classic against Kentucky. He went for 23. Like that was far and away his biggest offensive game. But DeJuan Harris is just a guy. You can't leave him alone, and he's going to create opportunities for his teammates. That's what he's so great at.
Fun fact about DeJuan Harris. It may not be a fact, but it's definitely fun. DeJuan Harris played with Perry Ellis. Perry Ellis was in college for 47 years and played with Bob Cousy. So we literally are just one generation removed from Bob Cousy and DeJuan Harris. Don't fact check me on that. It's true. But yeah, he has been around the block several times. And the thing about him is he continually gets stronger at some of the areas that Kansas needs, right? Sometimes he's improved his shot because they need more shooting. This year, I think a lot of it has been his distribution. The fact that he's able to get guys into space and find them. And yes, a lot of that's probably dumping the ball into Hunter Dickinson, who will then like kind of pass out. They have an inside-out game. But DeJuan Harris will find the open man. And I think on defense, we saw, again, guys will take shots on us and make them if they're uncontested. But when we contest shots, it is very difficult to make a shot against Duke. So that's going to be a lot of what Duke needs to do is kind of slow him down by keeping passing angles protected so that he can't get the ball to the guy he wants.
Yeah, you mentioned DeJuan Harris doesn't shoot a lot of threes, but when he does, he'll knock it down at about a 38% clip. He's a fairly good 3-point shooter. They have a do-it-all forward in KJ Adams, 6'7", 235. He is likely to get the assignment, at least initially, of guarding Cooper Flagg. High motor, athletic defensive specialist as KJ Adams. Makes all the little plays. He's one classic, like, do the dirty work kind of guy. And he will be one of Cooper's biggest challenges so far on this season. It's going to be really interesting to see, what KJ Adams is able to do to slow down Cooper Flagg, and whether if it frustrates, because KJ Adams, by the way, very experienced player. If it begins to frustrate Cooper Flagg, if Duke is able to figure something else out, because I'm not sure Cooper Flagg's going to get things quite as, and not that it's been easy, but it's not going to be quite as easy as it's been in other games. KJ Adams is a major defensive problem, so to speak, for Cooper Flagg. Their backcourt will also include Zeke Mayo. Zeke Mayo was the Summit League Player of the Year last season at South Dakota State, averaged better than 18.8 points per game, almost 6 rebounds per game, 3.5 assists per game. And interestingly, his stats haven't dipped all that much at Kansas. Now his scoring is down. He's at 12.6 points per game, but he's still grabbing more than 5 rebounds per game, better than 3 assists per game. Zeke Mayo is a really, really good athletic player. He'll score on you in a variety of different ways. He is Kansas's highest volume 3-point shooter. He takes almost 6 threes per game to Zeke Mayo, and he hits them at a 38% rate on his career. Now, he's only been around 31% this year for Kansas, but clearly he's a guy who's capable of hitting threes at a higher rate. I hope he doesn't have a game where he reverts to the mean, so to speak, a catch-up game against Duke. We can wait on that a little bit, Zeke. Maybe not this contest. The fifth starter for them is Rylan Griffin. He came over from Alabama. He's another guy who likes to shoot a lot of threes, makes them about a 40% clip. I mean, if you notice something consistent here, all these guys from Kansas, they don't shoot a ton of threes, but the guys who do hit them at a pretty decent rate. Rylan Griffin is a 6'6" wing. He's like sort of the outlet valve for Hunter Dickinson. When Hunter Dickinson goes in the post and you think about doubling him, Rylan Griffin is the guy who's like standing out there like, okay, pass it out to me, buddy. I've got this. He's a good defender. Who projects, there are not a lot of these guys on Kansas that you go, oh, that guy's going to be an NBA starter, but there are a lot of them who you go, that guy's going to play probably, that guy will find a role further down the bench in the NBA. Rylan Griffin is one of these guys where you go, that's a an eighth man on an NBA team and a 3-and-D kind of guy.
Glue guy. Yep.
Yeah. Well, not so much glue guy, but literally a 3-and-D guy in the NBA. Rylan Griffin has those kind of skills because he has good length, good shot mechanics. And then I want to talk about 2 other guys coming off the bench. The first one is AJ Storr. We talked about transfers, and AJ Storr is the ultimate mercenary, I think. He started out at St. John's. He then went to Wisconsin. He's now at Kansas, 3 teams in 3 years. It's kind of known, hey, are you the highest bidder? AJ Storr is available to you. Nothing wrong with it. I've got no problem with it. And Kansas, as we said, has one of the highest NIL budgets, but AJ Storr is another good athlete. He has good size on the wing, and he's a guy who could slide over and take Cooper Flagg at times. I actually think you'll see him matched up a lot. He and Rylan Griffin will probably spend most of the time matched up on Con Knippel, and this could be a really those guys, long, athletic. I think they could be a really tough matchup for Con. I feel like Duke is going to need another scorer in this game because the matchups on defense especially are going to be difficult for Con and Cooper. And then the other bench guy I wanted to mention was Flory Badunga. Folks may recall we talked about Flory a lot on this podcast because there was a fierce recruiting battle between Duke, Baylor, and Kansas. And again, I no offense to Flory, everything we hear is that it came down to NIL. And at one point, Duke beat out Baylor, and then Kansas said, oh, no, we got the last bid. We're here for you. But Flory is the interesting thing about his recruitment is when Duke was recruiting him, when he was deciding between Duke, Kansas, and Baylor, his reputation was a little bit better than it got at sort of toward the end of his high school career. He was considered, maybe the top center, the top big man in the high school class. Number 1, number 2, somewhere in that kind of. Ace Bailey, I guess, was number 1, but he was very close behind Ace Bailey. And not to say that, he was bad, but his reputation sort of took a little bit of a hit as the All-Star games happened and things like that. And, as a result, when Duke missed on him, it sort of opened up the door for Duke to get Kamen Malawach. I think most people would say that Kamen Malawach is a better fit at Duke and a better prospect than Flory Badunga. So I'm kind of thrilled that we didn't spend the money on Flory. But Flory is a really, really good player who has a nice future ahead of him at Kansas, I think. 6'9", explosive leaper. He loves to yam the ball. He's taken, I love this, he's taken 23 shots on the season. 15 of them have been dunks. I mean, come on.
Did he miss any?
He's missed one. He's missed one.
There you go.
Right.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah. He's also a good shot blocker, good offensive rebounder. But again, if he's not as good a shot blocker as Common is, he's not as good an offensive rebounder as Common is. I'm pleased that Duke has who we have, but keep an eye out for Flory Badunga, because the moment Hunter Dickinson comes off the floor, Kansas will get a little bit faster, a little more explosive, because Flory Badunga will be the guy playing center. Now, he doesn't play a lot. He's only playing around 12 minutes a game because Hunter Dickinson's taken all those other minutes. But Kansas, sort of the complexion of their team changes when Hunter Dickinson comes off the floor and Flory Badunga comes on the floor, because, again, they become a little bit more explosive, but they aren't running the ball through the post in the same way they do when Hunter Dickinson's out there. And then the last thing, I've said Hunter Dickinson's name so much. One of the most compelling things about this game is, how does Kansas play defense on Duke? Because Hunter Dickinson, as great as he is on offense, is not a great defender. He's not a guy who can defend in space. Does Duke send Common Malawach out to the perimeter a little bit more? We saw in the last game that Common is not afraid to take an open three. And does that force Hunter Dickinson out of the middle a little bit to guard him? Does Duke, what does Duke do with Maalik Brown? We've seen him practice. John Shire talking to Maalik Brown, take that three. You're good at it. Take that. We haven't seen it happen in a game yet. But does Duke maybe send, Maalik Brown out to the perimeter a little bit to draw Hunter Dickinson out? Does Kansas play some zone to try and protect Hunter Dickinson a little bit? Does Duke try and get the ball up and down the floor? I mentioned everybody on Kansas is fine playing at a fast pace other than Hunter Dickinson. Not that he's terribly slow, not that you're going to wear him out, but he wants to play in a half-court grinded out kind of game. And Duke's ability perhaps to take him into uncomfortable places, to maybe make him speed up a little bit, is huge to this game, because if Hunter Dickinson is getting big points and controlling the middle, it is going to be really difficult for Duke to win this game.
There's a couple of matchups here that I think are interesting. I want to get into them by starting with Hunter Dickinson. And I think it's interesting because Hunter Dickinson is kind of the head of the snake that doesn't have the ball to start possession. Usually you talk about like a point guard or maybe a point forward that can bring the ball up and really affect the game on his own. Hunter Dickinson is a type of player who, even at Michigan, and I watched a lot of him when he was at Michigan, he is a guy that requires somebody to give him the ball. And if you don't have a facilitator, then Hunter Dickinson can be stopped. I think the one thing about Hunter that you didn't mention in the thing, yes, he averages a double-double, but he averages almost 2 assists a game. He averages almost 2 steals a game. He averages almost 2 blocks a game. He's a lot of what they do on offense and defense. And again, they have an inside-out game where they'll dump the ball into him. If he can't go score, he will find somebody that can take an open three. So this is where I start with. Duke needs to play with tenacity on both ends of the floor, both offense and defense. We saw a little bit of that fight in Arizona, and I want that to extend to Vegas, because I think the one thing that is out about our players is that, hey, if you push them a little bit, you get in their face a little bit, they might, have an off day. And they just want a couple of our guys to have an off day and think that they can exploit those matchups. You mentioned the strong matchups that Kansas has with Con Knippel. Con Knippel, again, we even saw back in the countdown to craziness. We saw Sion James kind of get in his face a little bit and kind of put on close on the ball pressure to him. And he wasn't as effective. He did the same thing with Tyrese Proctor. Those guys are going to have to fight through that, because Kansas is going to try and do that, at least initially, with a couple of these guys. So I want that tenacity to be present. And also on offense, there's going to be guys who you can go right at them, right? Like you mentioned, Hunter Dickinson, not a lot of lateral quickness. He will stand there and he will be a big boulder in the middle of the forest, and you just try to get around him. But at the same time, you want to go in their face, because if Hunter Dickinson gets foul trouble, he will go to the bench. They have a lot of guys who don't replace the guys that they have starting on the floor. And I think that is key here. Now, the one thing I stress with Kamen Malawach is not necessarily the matchup between him and Hunter Dickinson. It's the matchup between him and a missed shot. Win the rebounding battle. And I think it starts with Kamen Malawach because recently Kamen, again, Man is a guy who's going to go for blocks. He hasn't yet mastered the art of going for the block, missing said block, and getting the rebound of what is a terrible shot. He's always, kind of taken out of the position by going for the block. And that's not a bad thing. But the thing that's going to slow down for him is the ability to go for that block and then turn around and get the rebound of the missed shot. If he's able to up his rebounding, get 4 or 5 rebounds, right? I'm not asking to do a double-double, but if he can get up to closer to 5 rebounds, again, that's taking a lot of rebounds away from Kansas, a lot of second chance opportunities from Kansas, and a lot of second chance opportunities from Hunter Dickinson, who loves to go up for a basket. He'll miss it. He'll grab it, and he's already, again, 7 feet tall and a foot from the rim. He's just going to pop it back in and lay it in. So Kamen is going to have a big battle on his hands, and really it's about boxing out Hunter Dickinson or whoever else is down there and going after a couple of rebounds.
Yeah, I didn't mention the rebounding rate when I was doing the advanced metrics, but Kansas is one of these teams where they're very good at defensive rebounding.
Yes.
Like top 50 in the country. Like they don't give up a lot of offensive rebounds, but they're not a great team at offensive rebounding. Like, for the most part, they're, Kansas is getting, what's the number? Oh, I'm going to find it. 26% of their missed shots, which is like bottom 100 in the country at offensive rebounding. Really, if it's not Hunter Dickinson getting a shot he just missed, they're not getting a ton of offensive rebounds because they're a team that they want to get back. They're not going to let you get a fast break. And so they also shoot so well from 2 that they're sort of like, yeah, it's okay. We don't need to go for those offensive rebounds that much. But you're right. The one guy who does get them is Hunter Dickinson, and Duke must focus on not letting him get those second chances.
So the key to that, right, is them missing shots. And I found the key to Kansas missing shots. Make them play stagnant basketball. You mentioned it. Their assist rate is 60%, which is quite high. And that's what we always aim for. Between 60%, 2/3 would be terrific for every single game. They average over 60%. But when they are not moving the ball around, they are forced to go later into the shot clock, which means they're forced to take terrible shots. And like you said, they are not going after the offensive rebound, save for Hunter Dickinson and maybe one other guy. The rest of them are getting back on defense because they want to just be ready for the defensive end of basketball. If we are able to make them play stagnant basketball, that means not making sure they don't move the ball around. DeJuan Harris, Zeke Mayo, like they're not getting the ball to the guys that they want. Then Kansas is going to be forced to put up one shot at the end of the shot clock. It is going to be a 1-and-out situation for them if they don't make it. And Duke will have the advantage there. And I think that's, again, we talked about that with Arizona. Arizona was averaging 21 offensive rebounds a game. They got 6, and 5 of them came late in the second half. So basically through 2/3 of the game or 3/4 of the game, they only had 1 offensive rebound because we were really good at boxing them out, getting the ball, and going the other way. And to your credit, Jason, even with that, Kansas is wanting to limit the fast break points. Arizona wanted to do the same thing. Guess what we did? We out fast break them in that game. So even with going after rebounds, it still allows you time to get the ball down and make something happen. Now, the final thing I will say, and you kind of alluded to this, and I know you didn't have my notes because I wrote this like 7 seconds before we started recording. Play bright under the lights. This is Las Vegas. It's Vegas. Last time we were in Vegas was 2021. We played number 1 Gonzaga. I was at that game. We won that game because big-time players shone bright in the biggest moments. It wasn't just Paulo Banchero, right? We saw an emergence of Jeremy Roach in that game, right? We had guys who, when the chips came down, they knew it was time to play big boy ball. You mentioned that Cooper Flagg we're not necessarily worried about him shining bright under those lights. He kind of thrives under those lights. And even in the Champions Classic, he had a terrific game. It was the second guy, right, that we needed. And there wasn't a second guy that emerged as, hey, Once you finally stop this guy, you got to get through me. And that could be Concanipple. That could be a Tyrese Proctor, right? Who, has had a couple of threes every single game. And again, has not put two halves together really in any game. It could be Common Malaj, right? Who's cleaning up in the glass. There has to be another guy who says, these lights are what I'm built for. And that's what Vegas is all about. So I'm looking to see who is going to emerge as that second guy, third guy, whatever you want to call him, that guy. And it could be also off the bench, right? We've seen Sion James come off the bench, do numbers. We've seen Malik Brown affect the game off the bench. We've even seen Mason Gillis affect with his defense. Somebody has to come up, and when you look back at this game, it's the insert player game, right? It's the, hey, we went to Vegas, and that was the Paolo Banchero game. That was the, Common Malwatch game. You want to have that be the legacy of this particular game in Vegas. And the fact is, if it is one of those games, it will come at the expense of the number one team in the country. So I'm hoping that shows up in this, and somebody decides that in Vegas, 7-7-7, it's time for me to roll.
I love it. I will say this about Duke. I don't feel like I have seen this Duke team play a complete game yet.
No, we haven't.
They've been great on defense all season long, and we kind of knew that was going to be the case. I feel like they've been, a little up and down on offense, and it would be really nice. It would be really fun for Duke to have a complete game on offense, because I think if you get two halves out of Tyrese Proctor, if Caleb Foster isn't missing the wide open threes that he's getting looks at, if Concanipple is, if you get two halves out of Concanipple, then this could get ugly. I mean, Duke has a higher ceiling than any team in the country. I'm a Duke fan, but I think that's clear to anybody who watches college basketball. And frankly, we haven't been anywhere close to that ceiling. And I think it'd be fun if we started to get some glimpses of it in Las Vegas.
Right. And again, it doesn't take like a super dynamite first half and like a, pedantic second half, right? Like, we're not asking for someone to go for 20 in the first and 6 in the second, or vice versa. Again, if Connor Knipple gets 8 points in the first half, 8 points in the second half, you look back, you go, man, he had 16 points. He was effective in both halves. He was, great shooting the ball, whatever that was, right? And it's not, again, we're not calling out any single person, but one of these guys can step up and say, hey, if I just have two good halves and outlast my opponent and be tough on defense and get, similar amount of points, this is going to be a game where that will be the difference. It won't be the rebounding. It won't be the, the 3-point shooting or any general stat. It'll be, hey, this one player showed up to play in Sin City and we got lucky. And we got lucky in the fact that this guy showed up at the right time and was an absolute killer for us. So I'm really looking forward to that. Jason, before we wrap up on the Kansas thing, just a reminder for folks that I will be in Vegas. I will be at Tom's Watch Bar at 3 p.m. local time on Tuesday. That's in New York Casino. It's right on the Strip. Come by, say hi. It's not going to be anything super formal. Just, going to grab some food, grab something to drink, and converse about Duke basketball and say hi to all you folks that are in town for the game. So I will see everybody there. I'm looking forward to it, and I know everybody out there is too.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be fun. We always love meeting up with folks, and I hope you get a decent little crowd there.
It should be fun.
Yeah, coming to share a drink with you, stuff like that. All right, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, Duke football 8-3 on the season. Yet another close game where the Blue Devils come out on the positive end of the score. A recap of Duke's win over Virginia Tech in just a moment. Hey, Duke fans, shopping time of year is here, and you should spark something uncommon this holiday season with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods.
That's right, Jason. The busy holiday season is here, and Uncommon Goods makes it less stressful with incredible hand-picked gifts for everyone on your list, all in one spot. Gifts that spark joy, wonder, delight. That it's exactly what I wanted feeling. We all want that. Somehow, they've created a place where you can find that exact perfect gift for everyone.
Donald, and speaking of perfect gifts, I've mentioned this before. I got this root beer maker from Uncommon Goods. It is outrageous. The notion that I can make root beer in my home, in my kitchen, is crazy. I can have it fresh whenever I want it. It is super cool. I strongly recommend that one.
So root beer floats in your future, acupuncture mat, my future. That's been great, especially after these long, stressful days. From holiday gifts to the coolest finds for kids to hits for everyone, from book lovers to diehard sports fans, Uncommon Goods has something for everyone. Not the same old selections you can find just anywhere. And with every single purchase you make, they give back $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. I think that's pretty cool. So far, they have raised more than $3 million.
Yeah, and by the way, in addition to doing good for the world, we're going to give you a little bit of a discount. You'll get 15% off your next gift at Uncommon Goods if you go to uncommongoods.com/DukeBB. uncommongoods.com/DukeBB. Get 15% off and don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We are all out of the ordinary.
Blinds.com's Black Friday sales event is happening now with our best deals of the season. Let our design experts help you make the perfect selection for your home on your schedule. We can send free samples right to you and handle everything from measure to install. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Save up to 50% site-wide, plus doorbusters, and a free professional measure at the Blinds.com Black Friday sales event now. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This year, Santa's bringing the power of Energizer into his workshop.
Whoa, the Energizer Bunny's got so much power.
Wait, he's powered up all the toys. I think that means we're done for the year.
I love this bunny.
He's the hardest working helper the North Pole has ever seen. And he wants all your gifts to have the power of the #1 longest lasting AA battery. So this holiday season, stock up on Santa's and the elves' favorite battery, Energizer Ultimate Lithium.
Looking for a pickup truck to get just about anything done? Look no further. The Chevy Silverado EV isn't just the most powerful Silverado ever, with next-level towing capability and technology. It also offers game-changing versatility with the available multi-flex midgate and tailgate, which means Silverado EV helps you carry large, bulky, and oddly shaped items up to nearly 11 feet in length. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive. Visit Chevrolet.com to learn more.
All right, we're back from the break, and we need to talk about some football. Blue Devils go to 8-3, 4-3 in the ACC with a 31-28 win over Virginia Tech. Wild. I have no other way. Donald, right? No other way to describe this game other than wild. A couple shout outs really quick off the top, and then Donald, I'll let you do some stuff on it. But Eli Pancol misses an entire season due to injury. He's essentially in his 6th year at Duke. This is his senior day. Oh my God. What a senior day. 188 yards receiving. His first two catches, Duke's first two possessions, just bombed the ball to Eli Pancol for 70, 80 yards. Outrageous. 188 yards receiving on 5 catches, 3 touchdowns for Eli Pancol. I mean, just unbelievable the way he gets to start the game. And we should mention Maalik Murphy, the guy who's throwing the ball to him. Mm-hmm. Maalik Murphy has now set a record for Duke. He is the most successful touchdown thrower in a single season in Duke history with the 3 TDs he had in this game. He now has 25 touchdown passes on the season. He broke Anthony Dilwig's record. Anthony Dilwig had the record set back in 1988. I remember Anthony Dilwig.
Let's say that's a deep cut. I
watched Anthony Dilwig play football. That was some fun. It was the Spurrier years, my friends. Those were some fun Duke football years. And Anthony Dilwig had 24 touchdown passes in 1988. Maalik Murphy now has 25 on the season, and he's got a game and a bowl game still to go. And frankly, at the pace he's been going, he has 11 touchdown passes in his last 4 games. At the pace that he's going, he's going to end up with 30 touchdown passes, which is a crazy number. We should also note, by the way, Maalik Murphy is moving a little bit more. Duke's rolling him out occasionally. Like he's not just standing in the pocket all the time, which is kind of anyway. This was a fabulous, fun game to watch. Duke takes a lead. Virginia Tech comes back. Duke then, when Duke was up 11, I thought, oh, this thing's no, no, not at all. A very exciting game. Give me your thoughts on the 31-28 win.
Yeah, well, first let me get to a headline. One of the headlines we got from John Grantland on this game, and again, John sends emails for both football and basketball. He had a couple, but this one I thought summed it up. The Book of Eli. Pancol's 3 touchdowns make history and secured Duke's 8th victory. The one thing I've said about this team since we became bowl eligible in October against Florida State is they need to show the bowl game committees that, hey, if you bring us to your bowl, we're going to entertain you and we can compete with anybody in the country. And the one thing that we have said over the last few weeks that has been stagnant and has not really gotten that together to kind of warm bowl committees up to the thought of having Duke in their town is the offense. And the one thing that we thought we were going to have at the beginning of the season was deep balls that provide entertaining moments. And wow, do we start off with some entertainment with an 86-yard touchdown to Pancol, and then like on the first play from scrimmage, and then the next series we got a 77-yard touchdown, both bombs from Maalik Murphy. That's what we want to see. That's the airborne Spurrier type of offense that we like to see, right? And I think the idea is, again, in this game we showed tenacity. Even though we had the 11-point lead, we had to hold on to it, and there was a couple of times where our defense once again came through. Jason, let me tell you some stats on defense. 14 tackles for loss. That is a lot of tackles, much less tackles in the backfield. They had 8 sacks.
Yeah,
8 sacks.
They were
6
all over
passes
the
defended.
Poor Virginia Tech QBs were like just on the move all game long.
Yeah. 8 sacks, 6 passes defended, and they had an interception. That is incredible numbers from the defense. And the defense puts up numbers like that. That gives you confidence that you can try some stuff on offense. And this time, the trying stuff on offense actually worked, right? We got the long passes. We got the long. Star Thomas had 63 yards. It was kind of a difficult day for him, but even he had a breakout 33-yard run. So we had these big plays on offense that really broke the backs of the Hokies. And I think that is where you want to see Duke continue to improve. We have one more game this season in the regular season, obviously, and then we have the bowl game. But that last game, I want to see them continue to expand the playbook a little bit, try some of these open shots downfield and get them, because that is, as much as the defense is going to be there and much as the defense has helped us win 8 games this year, it's the offense and the electricity of the offense that's going to let bowl committee say, yeah, let's pair them up with this team and see what happens, because I think it'll be an entertaining game. So again, congratulations to Duke. 8 wins. We keep repeating, 8 wins is not somewhere we expected to be at this point. And really, if you think about it, we're a couple of plays here and there away from being like 10-1. So this is a team that's really been playing really, really well this year for the most part. And again, just continue to keep improving in the last game of the regular season.
Yeah, you mentioned Star Thomas. I wanted to point out, so Duke really struggled on the ground for most of this game.
Yes.
But with 5 minutes left, Duke got the ball back, only up 3. And Star Thomas was the key factor in a drive that almost ran the game out, where Duke took a lot of time off the clock. I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to, this is going to be one of these drives where it's going to be 3 rushes into the middle because Duke's just trying to run some clock, and, we're going to be punting right away. No, Duke got a couple first downs. Star Thomas, I thought, did a fabulous, fabulous job of finding the right hole and moving the pile and stuff like that. It was very important for Duke to really wind that clock down, so Virginia Tech didn't have much time left to try and get that last score. And let's talk about numbers really quick, because the numbers on this game, like if you look at the box score on this game, you're like, how is Duke even in this? Like Duke had 12 first downs. Virginia Tech had 24. Duke just 2 of 11 on third down. I think at one point I want to say we were like 0 of 9 or 1 of 9. Something. It was just, and all season long we've seen it, like Duke cannot convert a third down, but they somehow find a way to win games and score points. Like turnover, Duke had 4 turnovers, 3 interceptions. Ugh. I mean, like the second quarter, ugly, not good. Like Duke scored 14 points really fast in the first quarter. Then the rest of the first half, you're like, okay, I'm not enjoying watching this. You know,
But it teaches you about the resilience, right? Like we've, as you said, we've had these games all year where the offense sputters, and you're just kind of like, well, there's going to be a point where the defense just can't bend anymore without breaking, and then the floodgates are going to open. But no, the defense was there, and the reason why we were up at halftime is because despite the fact that we, gave up a 14-point lead, the defense just kept us fighting, and they kept us in the game, and even though they got a lot of first downs, they would always get like a tackle for loss or a sack, or break up a pass that would have really killed our momentum. And it makes Virginia Tech have to turn the ball over and give the ball back to us. And because of that, the offense got more opportunities to do some of these big plays.
Yeah. Yeah. But overall, just a great win. Once again, a win that I think a lot of it came down to Duke's defense and just the outstanding defensive effort. I feel like this Duke team would be in any game against just about any team in the country because of their defense. They've got one more regular season game left against Wake. Wake Forest is a team that needs another win to get to be bowl eligible. Virginia Tech needed that as well. Didn't matter.
Well, Wake Forest lost yesterday to Miami, so they are now 4-7. They need the win. Yeah, they need the win to get to 5-7 because they have those like if bowls aren't filled, then 5 and 7 teams can go. But for all intents and purposes, Wake Forest played themselves out of a bowl yesterday.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not like against Miami, not like they had a great chance.
Not like they had a choice. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. But yeah, this Duke team is looking like, I mean, it's not at all impossible to imagine this team finishes the season with 10 wins. And frankly, coming into the season, I think most people would have said, oh, if they pick up 4 or 5, that's really great. Getting bowl eligible was a major goal. And a goal that people probably thought Duke wouldn't get to be at 8 wins on the season, to be assured of having at least a 500 record in the ACC. Really, really great performance by Manny Diaz and the coaching staff. The improvement they've had on defense has been amazing. And it's been fun to watch. It's been a really fun season. They've been an exciting team all year long. Looking forward to that last game against Wake Forest. Anything else?
So the other thing, the real quick thing, if you're looking at the bowl eligibility, one thing that they kind of do, and first of all, they still have the Pac-12 affiliations for one more year. So take Cal out of it, which Cal is out of it, and take Stanford out of it, which again, Stanford's out of it. And then SMU, I think, is linked in with the American bowl tie. So unless they get to the playoff. So take them out of that for a second. Back in the day, and I don't know if this has changed with the new layout, but it used to be where if there was teams stuck at the same record, they could take one of those teams. But if there's a team like one loss above or one loss below, so if Duke is 4-4 in the conference, they could take a team that's 3-5 if they thought they would have a better chance of getting more tickets sold. Well, that means you want Duke to continue to move up the rankings, despite the fact that
one more win matters.
Those wins matter. So right now, Duke is, if you're looking at the standings, I believe Duke is 6th in the ACC. But the only teams ahead of them that are not yet, or that still have games outstanding in the ACC are SMU and Miami. Clemson is done, Louisville's done, and Georgia Tech is done because they all have interconference rivals that they're playing in the last week of the season. So with next week's win against Wake Forest, if they can beat Wake Forest, they can move up in the rankings and make it where a bowl game has to take them, and is in a position where they're saying, "Oh, I have this team right here or Duke, and Duke is at a point where I can't bypass them to go further down the line because other teams are tied in elsewhere." So, again, not necessarily important for like the conference, rankings or anything like that, but next week's game for Duke is super important because you want to beat Wake Forest because they're not that good. And you also want to move up in those standings so that, again, when we're talking about the upper tier bowls in the conference, they're the ones that are considering Duke, not the, all due respect to the Birmingham Bowl, which I went to last year. It was a lot of fun, but we are aiming for a bigger and better bowl game and against a better opponent so that we can show that not just Duke, but the ACC is an improved conference. To do that, we need to continue to move up the rankings.
Yeah. Look, there's just a lot of stuff going on in terms of bowls and the playoff and things like that. And it's fun and exciting that Duke is not the playoff, but Duke is, at least involved in some of it. Speaking of the playoff, by the way, What a crazy day that was yesterday. Oh my goodness. I don't know what you do with Indiana, but on the other hand, Alabama lost.
Ole Miss lost.
Ole Miss, yeah, like
Colorado lost.
Yeah, some teams are eliminating themselves.
Did BYU lose? No, BYU lost.
No, BYU lost to Arizona State. Yeah, there are certain teams that are like kind of eliminating themselves. I don't know. It's crazy time. College football. I think the 12-team playoff is very exciting.
At least I don't even know the playoff itself is going to be exciting. The picking's going to be because there's going to be
that's what I mean.
A lot of teams that have beef and a lot of teams that are going to look at the record. They're going to go, ooh, yeah, probably shouldn't have lost this team or should have played a little bit better that week. It's going to be a lot of what ifs come December 8th or 9th.
Yeah, whenever it comes down. All right, that's going to do it for us here on the latest edition of the DBR podcast. Thanks for listening in. Donald will be in Vegas, and we will have a recap of what happened against Kansas probably on Wednesday morning. Donald, I'm guessing you're not going to want to record Tuesday night, right?
We'll see. We will see.
Oh, until then, he's Donald. I'm Jason. Here's the Duke Band playing us out, taking us to the Strip against Kansas. Go Devils.